You've mentioned supernatural combat. I think that could bring up any number of images. I think it has something to do with last time we talked about wizards and sages and the afterlife and stuff like that. What does Taoist supernatural combat mean, and how does it relate to Taoism?
Well, it's the foundation of Taoism and its early roots. If you look at, most people are exposed to Taoism through the philosophical Taoist period, which emerged in the Warring States period, or the late Zhou Empire. So but Taoism existed prior to that. A lot of times there are claims that Taoism didn't exist until, for example, the Tao Te Ching and such, but that's because the word Taoism didn't exist until that time. And it was incorporated into written text.
So Taoism was applied to Taoism by the Tao Te Ching, or along that time?
Well, it's your early documents come from that Warring States period, so the late Zhou Empire. And the text that people are most familiar with is the Tao Te Ching. And this comes out of what's called the philosophical tradition of Taoism, where a lot of Western scholars believe Taoism started. However, as research has increased and translation has increased, the West has begun to shift its position to actually fit the knowledge and traditions of Taoism. And so the word Taoism, or its equivalent, didn't exist at that time. In fact, the word Tao may or may not have even existed until the Warring States period. And so we would quickly get into like archaeological and text references, which really isn't, it'll be interesting to like one out of whatever number of people listening to this, and not really interesting to anybody else. So, the philosophical tradition, about 5% of the Zhou population were elite scholars. So in China, or that general area, there was an entire class of learned and educated people, the scholar class. Yeah. And they were responsible for reading, writing, administration, everything else. And all indicators are is between 5 and perhaps all the way up to 10% of the people were capable of reading and writing at a very high level. And then you had perhaps...
That's exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really done much better than that. Yeah. So, and the bulk, or then you had about 10% of the people that were baseline literate. They could do basic math, grocery lists, accounting, perhaps a brief note. If you wanted anything serious written, you had to go to a scholar and pay him a little bit, and then he would write a letter which would get sent to another scholar who would read it and
translate it and convey it to its destination. Wow, that's an interesting system.
So those are the people, a percentage of those people, so let's say 5 out of 100, they would, in theory, have the ability to engage in the philosophical tradition, because the philosophical tradition was composed of reading and contemplation, usually of the Tao Te Ching or one of the other works, or of the poetry associated with it. Yeah. So if we wanted to go do philosophical, this is the way it would work. I'd maybe write some poems or some clever songs. Somebody would, and what made a scholar is they memorized all the texts. So then we would gather by a meandering stream, very specific, meandering stream. Okay. Drink large quantities of wine and eat small treats, various flavored meats and fermented vegetables and pickles and various relishes. Okay. So we would essentially have a party where we would discuss the ways of the universe and what was meant by things. Yeah. That was the philosophical tradition, and it's the reason it survived. Now, in most cultures, and people may not realize it, that's philosophy. So, cross-culturally.
Yeah, totally.
So, however, that's not where Taoism started.
Okay.
Yeah. So keep in mind, that's a percentage of 5% of the population.
Yeah.
Okay. So prior to that, where most of Taoism is practice. And that was taught orally, in part because you didn't have to be part of the 5% of the population that could read.
Yeah.
So at that level. Now you could be, and most Taoists in general became literate and highly capable scholars, but not always. You don't have to be. However, the practices beforehand existed for many thousands of years. So that would be the Zhou Empire. Before that, there was the Shang, where a lot of the elements of Taoism were being worked out. However, the Shang Empire in oral tradition was kind of a dark empire. So it was known for its cruelty.
Oh.
It was well organized. Some believe it practiced human sacrifice on a regular basis. Prior to that was the Shah. And those three empires or dynasties constitute what's known as the legendary period, which ranged anywhere from 3,000 to 30,000 years, depending on the legend and the myth.
Ooh, wow, yeah.
And what you consider to be Shah, not Shah. And there's very little knowledge of the Shah Empire. There's okay knowledge of the Shang, and there's a growing, established body of Zhou material.
Okay.
So Zhou was kind of like the peak Taoist empire. Prior to that, according to the traditions, Taoism first existed in a shamanistic form, specifically developed to fight against supernatural creatures, most of whom were predators of humans. So in many other religions, humans are this special cluster of people favored by the gods and destined to inherit this and that. Not so in Taoism. We're essentially prey creatures, and we're regularly hunted. There was a good chance, and this is essentially the creation myth of Taoism.
Okay.
There was a good chance that humans were going to get hunted into extinction.
Oh, man.
And then very gradually, people repeating methods of somewhat success at repelling what were called demons started to kind of combine notes as to like what's working, why is Frank over here still alive, and like these other 20 guys, they dried up little husks.
Oh, man.
You know, what did Frank do different?
Yeah.
You know, basic trial and error, basic empiricism.
Yes.
And those methods got combined together, and as with most military type training, unbalanced, designed to give you an advantage in the short term.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And that was Taoism in its early proto-Taoist form.
Wow.
So, and that was largely about learning to master large quantities of energy, even if it meant destroying yourself in the process. And very few practitioners of that era lived past the late 20s or early 30s.
Ooh.
So, but the Shah existed more than likely late Stone Age on up through the Copper Age into, I would say, at least the Bronze Age. Iron Age didn't emerge until later.
Okay.
So that's
that empiricism set a direction for Taoism too, right?
Yeah, those were all fundamental assumptions that continued to develop over time. Actually, I was just chatting with an apprentice a while ago, and as I made a basic point, keep in mind extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. And that has been a core element of Taoism since its very beginning, because you want to end up being Frank, you don't want to end up being the 20 dried husks next to Frank.
Right. So
people under survival stressors tend towards the things that are successful.
Yes.
And avoid the things that are unsuccessful.
Yes.
People,
there's no messing around. I mean, things that really work, you stick to. It clears away all the nonsense.
Right. You have the trial right before you, and the judge's death.
Yeah.
And it's pretty straightforward. And Taoism has never lost that trend. It's dallied, you know, because we have the big umbrella.
Yep.
But you have a little dalliance over here and a little dalliance over here. Like the old trial, for example, for somebody claiming to fly, is that you would grab them and throw them off the side of a building. If they can fly, they fly.
You got it.
Right, let's say you picked up a bird.
Right.
And the bird can fly.
How would you prove it to be able to fly?
You toss it off the side of the building.
Yep.
Now hopefully it's not a what do you call a little bird?
Fledgling?
Hopefully it's not a fledgling just learning to fly for the first time.
Right.
But you know, if you're a Taoist making that claim, you should not be a fledgling because you know what's coming.
Yes.
So somebody's going to pick you up and throw you off the side of a building.
Yeah.
Or fly across a chasm. These are all things which for a bird should be straightforward.
Yeah, easy.
I mean, you don't even have to fly all the way. You could just fly part of the way and then fly back. That's pretty much enough proof for everybody.
Yes.
So that's essentially been the standard, which is no matter how outrageous the claim is, if you can demo it, you have instant credibility. Now, nobody may believe your explanation, so you can sit back and say, well, I can fly because I eat a lot of beans.
Right.
That explanation is independent of the actual evidence.
Doesn't really matter, right?
The data is, yes, this individual can fly approximately this far, turn around and come back.
But if you want to form a methodology about flying, then you got to know how and why.
Right, then that's where all the testing and trial and everything else comes out. Because you don't want to be the person trying to bean his way off of a roof and back and realize, yeah, that dude could fly, but that is definitely not the method.
It wasn't the beans.
It was not the beans that led to this. And then you start looking for something else.
Yes.
So the root of supernatural combat is actually empiricism. It's that systematic trial and reproduction, and that is used to hone better and better method. So while the Tao Te Ching is a masterwork of poetry, most of Taoist work is tedious and methodical.
Oh.
It is not poetic at all. It is incredibly boring. And it's hard to understand. However,
And it's tough training.
right, what survives is the poetry.
Yeah.
Because people like it.
Yeah.
It moves them.
Yeah.
But it's not a method manual. So supernatural combat was built off the principles that would allow communities to survive and to even the odds at that time against what are now called demons, but were actually predators or prey beasts of energetic structure. So the world, so the magic number is 10,000. The world 10,000 years ago. That just means long time ago. It doesn't actually mean 10,000 years ago.
Right.
And same thing exists within Egyptian culture. For example, 10,000 eventually became 1 million because they realized 10,000 really wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago.
Especially as your empire starts to stretch on. It's
Yeah.
like, we need to come up with a different number that kind of means infinite
Yeah. More impressive.
or very long time.
Yes.
So 10,000 years ago, energetic creatures roamed the wilds, regularly consuming humans, and were visible even to the naked eye of the humans of that period. So those associations between predation and prey
Yeah.
were well established.
Yeah.
Eventually,
It was
as
not
time went on-
make-believe. You saw it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So- but time has shifted. The available structure of energy has changed over time.
Oh.
And at that early time, there was no social mind. So this was pre-social mind. So pre the red dust.
Yes.
Pre before any of that even emerged. So in theory, everybody was enlightened.
Right. Which just
That's a
means
whole other talk, but
they were engaged with reality.
right, they were engaged with reality and they were outside of the social mind.
Right.
Those are the definitions of it. So it's like, as I tell people, The better definition for Taoist is personal liberation, which means you get to shape yourself independent of the social mind and live a life independent of the social mind.
Yeah.
Somewhat. It's like living a life independent when you have an occupying force all around you.
Right.
So you can live your own life, but it has to be done cleverly and with a great measure of caution. So where at one time, that was not the case.
Right.
Now that did not mean that everybody was well-developed. Well-developed individual in this pre-social mind time is what is now called an adept. So those would be the arts of people who decided to pursue and develop energy to high levels, internal control to high levels, and fully develop the human to become a superior human. So Taoism actually doesn't start, well, it does now, but at that time, Taoism didn't start before Enlightenment. It started after Enlightenment. It was for when people were fully intact and preparing for combat.
Yeah.
That was its focus.
And you had a relationship with the Tao already.
And people regularly interacted with it. So actually you regularly interact with it now. It's just, it's masked through the mind.
And we do it really dumbly.
I will not contradict that.
Some of us do it dumbly.
Yeah, go ahead.
So these demons that used to be roaming around and are now invisible, what are you talking about?
I don't know what you're saying.
I'm saying these are creatures that we had to defend ourselves against. What are they? What?
The demons are a higher level of Ching than us. So if you don't know Ching, I can't cover it in time within the time we have here. Listen to one of the prior talks dealing with Ching.
Okay,
So,
I think we have.
there are several, and there's also discussions on the website. There's also all sorts of things like that. But basically, they're a higher order creature than us, which is a kick in the pants for a lot of people believing that they're a lower order creature than us.
Yeah.
They are superior to us for a number of reasons. One, they have complete knowledge of the past. Two, they are aware of a large chunk of the future, not complete awareness of it. So they're already far more advanced than your average human being is.
So the training was trying to get us on a level playing field, a more level playing field with these creatures.
Let's say you're a farmer, or let's say you're hungry, Morgan.
Okay.
And you have chickens out back. And instead of taking their eggs, you decide you want some chicken stew.
Right.
You walk on out there, and here are some chickens over here just doing chicken stuff. They're scratching, they're eating some things.
Yep.
They look nice and plump.
Yeah.
Then there's a couple chickens over here, they're all muscled up. They're ripped chickens. They're walking like this. And you walk over to them, and one of them immediately just jumps up and slaps you across the face.
Whoa!
And then gives you a couple of hits.
Chicken punches.
Which chicken are you going to go for?
So it's the old thing, I don't have to run faster than a bear, I just have to run faster than you.
Yes.
That's harsh.
It is harsh. And when a Taoist was intervening, what they really would do is kind of be the defender chicken in front of a bunch of tasty chickens.
I see, okay.
But the truth is, at the end of the day, the farmers just would kind of go someplace else. They wouldn't go with that cluster of chickens because, why? Plenty of other chickens.
Yeah.
Why bother with the chicken that's slapping you in the face and giving you a couple shots and walking around all ripped? Now, can you beat that chicken? Well, certainly. You have vast tools beyond chickendom available to you.
I'm way more than a chicken.
Right. But is it worth it?
Is it worth the trouble?
The answer is no, it's not worth the trouble. So the object of all that training, and here's a very humbling fact, even for Taoists that undergo the elaborate preparation, acquire the skills, everything else. Like to other people, they're super ripped on the spiritual level.
Yeah.
But they know the best that they're going to do against a demon is simply be such a big pain in the ass that they're not going to hang around anymore. That's it. That's how the fight is fought.
Wow.
So every once in a while, you will get a chicken who goes from the ripped level to some sort of outrageous level and can rival a demon or even exceed a demon in power.
Whoa.
However, they're usually not in the defensive structures anymore, because to do that, they can't stay at the same Ching level as everybody else.
So they can't relate to the other chickens. So they're like a whole different species.
There's partly that, but it's also partly a matter of there are like energetic rules which essentially stay. You can't stay. That you get bumped up, so you get kicked upstairs.
Ooh.
So you can come back for little bits, but you can't stay. And so that creates kind of a difficulty for people. Also, the only way to move out of the Ching level is to do it yourself. Somebody else can't do it for you. What they can do is they can protect you from predators, but you have to make your own journey up and out, because that's spiritual development, and essentially that's the rules of the universe. Now, and that's basically it. So the differences we have in this current era is, you know, within Taoism we say we were successful enough for our species to continue. Reproduced, produced a lot of beasts. The reality is there's just a lot more chickens now.
But the demons are still out there.
Oh yeah. It's just that there's a lot more for them to eat, so.
So if you're moderately annoying or harder to eat, then there's plenty of other chickens around to find that are easier.
Predators, by their very nature, prefer low risk and are lazy. That's one of the reasons they're successful. You don't go chasing after the fastest possible gazelle. You don't go hunting the most difficult, ripped whatever hanging out by the water hole. It's like you just walk around and go, now that's lunch right there.
That one's sick.
So,
it can't run very fast. I eat that one.
yeah. And because no risk to you.
Yeah. You don't want to get injured. You don't want to overexert yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and plus you don't want your demon buddies to make fun of you because you got slapped around by a chicken. So,
that would be humiliating.
if they experience such a thing, I do imagine it would be. So, I mean, does that answer your question?
I think it does, as much as I can fit in my head today. So, is there a reason for supernatural combat and that level of Taoism still today?
Well, there are other elements that go to that entire regimen. So I'm just talking about those were like the early origins. It's an entire division, like within the Four Ascendant. So, and in many other practices. So it would fall into talismanic stuff. Still works in that area.
Okay. Yeah.
There are still exorcists. And that's a Western name, so that's not the Taoist name, but they're using the old practices slightly modified.
So even if you're not fighting demons precisely, Taoism learned a lot along the way.
Well, that's where those arts were built and established.
That could help us in other ways.
Well, if you look at the other legendary components, so from the same era, part of the issue is that reality as we conceive of it today, other than being controlled by the social mind, was unstable. And so it would regularly fracture. It still fractures today, but not at the same regularity. Yeah, it breaks apart and then reorders. It's actually how change occurs. But
do we notice that? Or is it like
some people notice it. Most people don't notice it.
Okay.
So. But if you're if you have a significant portion of the dust on you, you'll never notice it. But if you have cleared a large portion of that off of you, you'll watch it occur around you. So, but periodically what happens is that there are periods of disorder that emerge. So it's an order and disorder.
That makes sense, yeah, sure.
And so where things are in these small fractured components, and classically, and by the legends, it would be a Taoist that would be sent to restructure the reality, basically make the pieces fit back together.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was very specific practices for doing that. There were items that had been developed, for example, during the peak of the Zhou Empire, specifically for the purpose of restructuring or reordering reality.
Wow.
Different components. It was very Harry Potter at that time. So.
So, holding the world together, protecting protecting us from demons, inventing science. That's a few things that the old Taoists are responsible for.
Well, had thousands of years to do it, so, you know, it's just how it works.
Oh, look, here's our friend Tarantula. Here's a little Flagstaff tarantula.
So, for example, the I Ching actually comes from the early I Ching comes from that period, and it was as the prior I Ching talk said, it was used to determine outcomes and potentialities, primarily for nobles and generals where there was a lot of stake.
Right.
But the other thing that it was used to do was to locate and determine when things were breaking within the reality, so that an adept could be dispatched to that particular area in order to provide a solution.
Is that like an early warning system?
Well, the I Ching is sensitive enough to the baseline of reality where it can actually reveal when things are occurring, even if they're masked. And so they can determine the presence of a demon. They can determine the presence of what we would now call gods, and even if they don't want to be detected, the I Ching is capable of detecting them. So in particular, for example, the what are called local gods, which are actually, that's a whole other conversation, so we won't do that today. Okay. They can determine the presence of dragons, different stuff like that. So.
Exciting.
So all the major tools, that was the origin. And then they got turned to more common uses for the bulk of people.
Yeah, but I mean, knowledge and information is applicable across the board, right? So as long as you learn like something that's factual, something that's useful, you can apply it to all kinds of things in life. Well,
you know, it's like with the I Ching. Most people want to know their future in just 3 areas. Where are they going to find love? Where am I money at? And how long am I going to live and suffer? And so those are your basic 3s. The truth is you don't need all the I Ching for that. You only need a few of them. And for that reason, you know, your lower level priests or readers for that aren't really setting out to do these sophisticated determinations of forces. And, you know, they're reasonably successful at isolating those components, but a lot of times you kind of have to massage a relatively complex response into being a pretty simple response of like, yeah, go look for a person of these characters over here, or you're going to be super unlucky for whatever period of time, or different factors like that. So
it's like using a really sensitive instrument to see if someone can, if you can walk through that door.
Yeah.